Good morning, and thank you so very much for coming. I'm Cheryl Stewart, the Communications Officer for Birmingham City Schools. Our Superintendent, Dr. Mark Sullivan, will make some opening remarks. We'll also be hearing today from Mr. Jason Meadows, our Board President, and we have several of our educators here who can respond to more specific questions about their schools and education. Thank you so very much, Dr. Sullivan. The floor is yours.
And speaking of our schools and educators, that's who we really want to hear from, because they are the ones who are in the classrooms and the schools every day that's making work happen. And I'm Dr. Mark Sullivan, as Cheryl indicated, Superintendent of Birmingham City Schools, and I want to thank you again for coming out this morning. We recognize that last week you reported on the annual release of the Alabama State Department of Education report card, the A through F report card as it's known. But I think that we want to take a few minutes today to discuss what's behind the grade. We want to talk about what makes success happen for the scholars in Birmingham City Schools every day. I'm joined by our board president, Mr. Jason Meadows, as well as our board member, Mr. Walt Wilson, and our board member, Mrs. Letitia Harville, as well as many of our principals who have made some outstanding improvement in their schools, as well as their teachers. We also have our academic officer and our instructional superintendent for our elementary schools here, Dr. Gwendolyn Tillman. You may have seen on the report card that our school system improved by 2 points. But you know, one of the things that immediately caught my attention was the reduction in the number of schools receiving an F. Last year, we had 15 schools to receive the letter grade of F. This year, we've cut that number in half to 7. 7 schools is far too many, but our goal for next year is to have 0 schools receiving the letter grade of F. In Birmingham City Schools, as I indicated, we had the overall grade of a C. 72 last year, 74 this year. Our goal for next year as a school district is to receive a B. We know that that can happen. I'm confident that that will happen. I'm confident because of the hardworking educators that we have in our school system, our students, our parents, our support staff, our community, who really come together to ensure that our students have what they need in order to be successful. You know, this report card also reflects chronic absenteeism. This year, our chronic absenteeism rate was 13.6%. Now, that may sound like a lot, and it is a lot, but just 2 years ago, our chronic absenteeism rate was 29%. So in 2 years, we've cut the chronic absenteeism rate in Birmingham City Schools by 55%. One thing I want to say, last thing I want to say before I bring up our board president is this. In Birmingham City Schools, like most school districts across the nation, most urban school districts across the nation, we've seen a decrease in enrollment. But I am proud to say that this year is the first year in 30 years that we've seen a positive enrollment year over year. We've increased that. What that relates to relates to ADM and funding, that is $1.5 million additional dollars because we had an additional increase in students in Birmingham City Schools. I think that is a testament to the work that's happening in our schools every day. I think it's a testament to the programs and offerings that we have in Birmingham City Schools. Our students have options in Birmingham City Schools, and I think our parents recognize those options, and they're coming back to Birmingham City Schools. We know that we have a lot of work to do. You know, we are not satisfied with a C, as I indicated earlier, but we are very proud that we have schools like Inglenook K-8 that went from an F to a C. Schools like Arrington Elementary School that went from an F to a C. Schools like Wylam that went from the F to a C. Schools like Oxmoor Valley that went from a C to a B. You know, schools like Southampton K through 8 that went from a C to a B, and schools like Princeton Alternative went from a B to an A. You know, we had 70% of our schools improve academically over their previous year's report card. So with that said, and we can go on and on and on in talking about the great things that are happening in Birmingham City Schools, I'm going to ask our board president, Mr. Jason Meadows, to come up. And I see in the back we have also one of our board members, Ms. Mary Boehm. And Ms. Boehm, if you would come join us behind the podium as Mr. Meadows comes up. Mr. Meadows, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Sullivan. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
You know, I want to start out by saying, I know this is Thanksgiving week, and I wanted to start out by saying what I'm most thankful about. I'm thankful that this morning that we're standing here on behalf of Birmingham City Schools with some really good news. I'm thankful that I have the joy to say that things are moving in the right direction with our school district. You know, this board that I started off and that we started off with a goal to improve academic achievement. We also had a goal to increase enrollment, to better communicate who we are as a district and what we have to offer to your children. We also wanted to improve our public perception. How do you view Birmingham City Schools? And improve the culture of our district. And thank you to Dr. Sullivan and his visionary, passionate leadership. We have improvement in each of those areas. And to me, that's something that is commendable. To understand education, that's no small feat. Our educators will tell you that it's hard to move 1 point. It's hard to move a student from a grade to another letter grade. Those things take a lot of coordination. And so I also want to applaud not only Dr. Sullivan, but his cabinet, our chief academic officer. They have to coordinate all of our 43 schools. And when Dr. Sullivan says that we've moved the amount of schools off the F list, we've moved schools from D's to C's, C's to B's, and D's to C's. I mean, that's remarkable. F's to C's. And so I'm very thankful this morning that I have this opportunity to talk about this great work. As I conclude, I also want to celebrate that our enrollment has increased for the first time in 30 years. What Dr. Sullivan also didn't say is that we also have the highest score. The 74 is the highest score that we've had under this, this metric by the state. That lets you know that our educators, our teachers, our administrators, every day, they show up with their heart in the right place, their leading heart first, but they also have a strategy and a plan. In order to move students, to move schools, it's a lot of coordination and a lot of work. And so, yes, the board and the superintendent, we make it possible. That is our job, to make these things possible, to support our schools by providing the things that they need. But I will conclude with, I promise you, I believe that we have the best group of principals in this country. I believe that the principals of Birmingham City Schools show up every day making a difference for the children of our city. And I tell people that in the public and also in private. I'm so proud of them, and if you would allow me to just celebrate a few of them after I've studied the data, and I would love to give them their flowers. I want to start off by highlighting, you know, I'm glad to see her here today. I didn't know. Miss soon-to-be Dr. Tompkins over at Wylam, moving from a 58 to a 71. That's remarkable, you all. I want to highlight Miss Walters, moving from a 62 to a 71 over at Green Acres. I want to, and my phone, look, my battery died, but I know it by heart. I also want to celebrate Miss Bernie over at Oliver Elementary School to move 15 points from an F to a D, from a 53 to a 68. I want to celebrate our high school sustaining at a C. Mr. Lyons and Miss Hines at Huffman and Carver. I also want to celebrate all of our magnet schools having an A. You all, this is remarkable work that's going on right here in Birmingham City Schools. And so as we always conclude, I'm so thankful to say that, you know what, success truly starts here.
I omitted recognizing our high school instructional superintendent, Dr. Janice Drake, who is here with us as well. Mr. Meadows mentioned this, but we have, for the first time, Last year, we started with 2 schools that scored a C as high schools, and I am confident under Dr. Drake's leadership that we're going to have all of our schools C or higher, all of our high schools at a C or higher. So at this time, I want to open it up for any questions, and please ask our principals and our teachers here questions, because I think they are where the rubber meets the road. They are everybody in the school system. I always say this: there are 2 employees in the school system: those who teach and those who support teachers. So we have teachers here, we have principals here. They are making this work happen in the schools every single day. So any questions that you might have? Bria, you're reading a lot. I know you got a question.
Specifically for the representation for Wyland and Barrington, how hard was it to go from an F to a C? Kind of talk to me about that.
So it was a lot of hard work. And but my teachers were willing. It was good work, great work. My teachers were willing to put in the effort. The students have been excited about learning, because you can't have the learning without the participation from the students. And so just going in and having the support from our district, there were people who I could call at the drop of the dime after looking at the data, trying to make decisions and strategies on what to do next. And those people will pick up the phone and they'll come over to assist us. And so, but yes, ma'am, lots of hard work.
Okay. Just to add, it's the culture of learning, the culture of inspiration. One thing that we tend to put culture second and third and academics first. That doesn't work. And so once we got everybody on board, we got them inspired, everybody knew what the targets were, and then the whole community, parents, teachers, aides, lunchroom staff, everybody was on board. So that was part of our success.
We talked about our enrollment, our attendance. Students can't learn if they're not in school, and so we really want to recognize the work that our mayor has done with in conjunction with the Housing Authority. I know many of you have done stories on this where incentives were provided to parents who live in the housing communities for a perfect attendance for the students. We also want to recognize our district attorney Carr, who has a program called Helping Families. And oftentimes when you think about a chronic absenteeism, many people look at it from a punitive standpoint. What we found in Birmingham City Schools is that many of our students who were chronically absent, they had social issues that they had to address. And so what Helping Families does, it really looks at how we support families to take away those barriers so that students can attend school. We had last year, we presented to the board some information about the number of students who were experiencing some level of homelessness. So we have 1,700 students at that time who experienced some level of homelessness. And if you're living in your car or you're living in a weekly motel, coming to school probably is not the first thing on your mind. So having something like the Helping Families who can provide assistance, provide clothing, provide shelter for students, that helps us to decrease the chronic absenteeism rate. I think you had a question as well.
Yes, sir. So I know we've seen a lot of improvements from schools going from F to higher levels. Those schools that are still at that F, what's being done specifically to target those schools to reach those students there?
So first of all, we are diving deeply into the data. We are a very homogeneous school system, meaning that one school, Wylam, the free reduced lunch population, the student body reflects the same as any other school in the school district. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel, but what we have to do is be real intentional about how we are providing supports to students, making sure we identify individual students' needs and putting structures in place to support those students. But more specifically, I'm going to ask Dr. Williams to come up. She's our academic officer, and she can tell you the exact strategies that we're using, not just those F schools, but every school. Dr. Williams.
Thank you. First of all, I do want to congratulate all of our wonderful schools, our principals, our teachers, our staff. They work hard every day to ensure quality instruction is done in Birmingham City Schools. In order to address those schools that are still at a level of an F, we're going to do the same thing but at higher levels that we did last year. First of all, like Dr. Sullivan said, we're going to look at that data. Every school's data is different, so we're going to target and have a laser focus on the areas of weakness and strengths to ensure that they're being provided with the support needed. Our motto in this district is that the district supports schools. They do the work. Our job is to go in and provide that support based on the data. So whether it's academic achievement, attendance, it could be our subpopulations, our special education students, or our English language learners. We're going to put structures in place in those schools, or make sure that the structures are in place and ensure they're effective, so that we can move the level of achievement at those schools so that they will not be D's or F's next year. We can say several of our F schools are already just right there at a D. So we may have more schools scoring at a C if we do things correctly. Okay. You have a question?
Dr. Sullivan, my last question is, this jump for the first time in 30 years to have so much enrollment, what are you doing, and then I guess how is it, obviously it's working.
So I think, you can, and I talk to the principals about this all the time, you can, they're really, we look at this like it's a business, right? And so if you have a business, there are really three things that you really have to do in order to be successful. You have to have a superior product, right? And so that is the work that's happening in our schools, improving academic performance. But not only that, you can have a superior product, but if nobody knows about the product, then you're not going to get business. So we have done an excellent job with our communications department, really communicating all of the great things that are happening in Birmingham City Schools. And then lastly, you have to have superior customer service, and we've invested a lot of money and a lot of time and energy and professional development in ensuring that we have good customer service in our schools. And so when we call parents and say, hey, Birmingham City Schools is your first option in education, when we say success starts here, we have, as the children say, we have the receipts. And so when parents see the great things that are happening in our school system, they want to be a part of that. And I think that that is why we're seeing the increase in our student enrollment. Anything else? Oh, let me recognize. We just had another board member come in, Mr. James Sullivan. Mr. Sullivan, raise your hand. No relation. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Tutoring programs that are being offered, are we seeing more students take advantage of those programs?
So, and I'll have Dr. Williams come up as well, but when you say students are taking advantage of, what we do is we identify students who have academic deficits, and then we provide them with additional supports. So what we oftentimes, after-school tutoring is only effective if students have after-school transportation. And so we try to make sure that we are working with in the school day to provide additional supports for our children. But I would say this, Tier 1 instruction, teaching students on grade level is the key to moving students academically, particularly students who come from areas who have challenges in their local areas or their community. But I'm going to ask Dr. Williams to come up because we have a litany of tutoring options for our students through high-dose tutoring with the partnerships we have with the local colleges and universities. The board invested very heavily in a program called ESS where we have additional support in the classrooms. But that support and those tutors only work with the students who are at medium and higher. We want to ensure that the students who are at most need are being taught by the teachers who have the most qualifications. So those students who are scoring below grade level, while that tutor is working with the mid and upper students, that gives that teacher an opportunity to work with the students with the most in need. Dr. Williams.
I think Dr. Sullivan covered most everything, but as to your question about taking advantage, one of the things that Dr. Sullivan put in place in 2021 was our intercessions. And yes, the answer is yes. Many of our parents and teachers are now invested in our intercessions. This year we have 2 intercessions. We had one in the fall, and we'll do another in the spring. We are very strategic who we invite. We, of course, invite all students. First of all students can come to intercession. However, those students who are scoring low or are in need of intervention, whether it's reading, math, whatever subject, we strategically invite those students, and they are provided with intensive instruction based on, like Dr. Sullivan said, our state required guidelines for the students who are in the literacy camps and our math camps. We also provide ACT tutoring in our high schools and our middle schools so that our students are getting getting that intervention just in time and not at the end of the year. So yes, our students and parents are taking advantage of those opportunities. We have after-school tutoring. Our schools do a really good job of providing strategic targeted instruction in after school. They do it during school. We have programs that come into our schools like Page Pals, STAIR, Better Basics. All of them work with our students on tutoring. We're very intentional about making sure if students are scoring below grade level, they're put in intervention right at the beginning of the school year. We don't wait until the end of the year.
You know, we've had a lot of schools that made A's and B's, you know, and typically these are magnet schools. But this year we have two schools that scored a level B, that is Southampton and Oxmoor Valley. And what that says is that no matter where your students come from, your students can achieve at high levels. So I'm going to ask Dr. Love to come forward. And Dr. Love, you have a teacher with you?
Yes, sir.
He's the principal at Oxmoor Valley.
So good morning. I can speak for Oxmoor Valley, as Dr. Sullivan stated, and of course I have a third grade teacher who is on ground zero in the classroom, making sure that those third grade students were reading that proficiency, and we saw 81% of our students reading that proficiency. But I want to also toot her horn, because before the cut score was changed, we did a lot of work around student achievement. They're at a C for about 2 years, and then after which they changed the cut score. I think Bria did a story on us in our intervention program. There was a disconnect with students coming to school in the afternoon with transportation issues, as Dr. Sullivan and as Dr. Williams stated. You know, there were a lot of wraparound services that we have, but we opted to do our own program and use a lot of our title money to have the support from retired teachers and those thereof to come in during the day to meet those students that are in the middle and higher. And we did see a significant gain from those students. We also saw some gain through our breakthrough. Dr. Sullivan spoke at a conference about breakthrough and the work that we did with breakthrough and meeting those goals. We did see the phonemic awareness go up in second grade, as well as we succeeded our goal in reading for third grade. So, of course, as I always say, I cannot take the credit for that because the teachers are in the classroom. But most importantly, the third grade teachers did a phenomenal job this year, I think, around the district, but especially at our school, with moving the needle on instruction. So I'm going to yield to that. And I'm going to let Ms. Levingston talk about some of the strategies that she used in her classroom to move the needle on instruction in third grade literacy.
Good morning. As Dr. Love said, third grade, including myself and my team, we were at ground zero in the trenches, and it was hard work. But the first thing we had a vision. And then we set goals. We tried to set attainable goals, and we bought into those goals. And some of those strategies we use, and I like to tell people all the time, the main thing we did, we mixed a little of old school with the new school, with the strategies that we have. So there's nothing like good old-fashioned teaching. Right. So that's what we did. And we bought in to our, to the goals that we set. We bought in. Everybody bought in, from the administrators down to the teachers, parents, students, the community, and everybody. And we had this goal that we wanted to reach, and it was attainable, and we reached that goal. And the main thing we wanted to do, and what we had to do, we had to trust the process. And we trusted the process, so here we are.
Can I ask a question for the teacher? Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Sure.
How long have you been teaching for?
This is my 30th year.
Wow.
This is my 30th year, and I've taught third grade. Of those 30 years, I've taught third grade 27 years. And third grade is my absolute most favorite grade. So out of those 30 years, you can imagine I've come across many strategies, many different techniques from, our literacy team, just from everybody up top down to, like I say, the parents and the students. But out of those 30 years, it's just nothing like good old-fashioned teaching and trusting the process. You have to trust the process. There were many, and it was very hard. There were many times you felt like giving up, but of course we can't do that because our students are looking to us. And we've spent late nights. Dr. Love would tell you we would leave the school 6:30, 7 o'clock. Some nights he would call, You and Ms. Bear, you all come out of those classrooms. We would stay after just the planning process, but we trusted the process. We trusted the process.
I know third grade is a critical year with the state testing requirements. What's your message to any other teacher, to how to get to where you got your students?
The first thing, and I'll say again, please trust the process. It is going to be extreme. You're going to run into some adversities, but you have to stay the course. Whatever your system, whatever is mandated down from our literacy department, we implement all of those strategies. And then you have to set aside, like I said, you have to mix a little bit of the old school with the new. You have to do what works. What works for little Johnny may not work for Sally, but we have to get everybody, we have to do what works for everybody and stay the course.